So if you find yourself in a situation where you've been in a collision with a rideshare, Uber, Lyft, Grubhub, DoorDash, Uber Eats, you have found yourself in a more complicated situation than typical. There are more layers of insurance to pierce and to decide whether or not they even apply. And so I want to break this down by sort of what role you're playing in this accident. It's going to depend on whether you are a passenger in a rideshare or if you're driving your own vehicle and you're struck by someone, an Uber or a Lyft driver, if you're a pedestrian struck by an Uber or DoorDash driver, because the role that you're playing is going to have some implication of what we can do for you. And also, what is the driver doing? Are they actually driving for Lyft at the moment that they hit you, or are they on their personal business? So I want to stop for a second and go backwards to the before times. Before Uber and Lyft, you had people who were on their personal auto policies, driving for personal business, and then you had commercial drivers, truck drivers, taxis, and that was the split. The dichotomy was it a personal or was it a commercial? These rideshare cases have sort of tied all of that into knots. And it's actually quite fascinating. We enjoy these cases. They're challenging. There are many opportunities to get you a fair recovery, but there's a lot of untangling to do. So for instance, if you are a passenger in the rideshare, then we know right off the bat the driver's on the app because he or she is transporting you. And if they're on the app, they have higher levels of liability coverage. We all know this because the data will be there showing that the driver logged into the app and was accepted a fare and was actively transporting this person or was on their way to pick the person up. And so those higher limits are going to apply for any collision that was caused. Those higher limits can be, typically they're $1 million. They can be other amounts. So if a driver is on the app and has caused the collision, then these larger limits like $1 million can be in play. But if they're not on the app, then the limits are not nearly that high, and they can be as low as $25,000 or $50,000. Another fascinating aspect to these cases is if the rideshare driver seems to be at fault, digging in to prove what they were doing. Were they distracted? Were they doing something else on their phone? Were they trying to grab their next fare? Were they jumping onto a competing app? A lot of these drivers drive for all of the companies. And so proving driver distraction, proving driver negligence can get involved. Again, that's why you need an experienced law firm like Willis, Wilson, Rizzi to dig in and make sure those bases are being covered. Understand that if you are in a situation where you have a claim against a rideshare company or a delivery company like Grubhub and you have substantial injuries, this is actually something that's true across the board. It doesn't really matter what the situation is. The bigger the claim, the harder they will fight. And if you're in a situation where that $1 million coverage is in play and you have substantial injuries, you or your loved one is facing a long road of recovery ahead, you need experienced lawyers on your side because it can get brutal. You also want to get a law firm quickly because this evidence can disappear. And unfortunately, these cases are such that you need a lot of technical data to preserve. If there's going to be a fight, you need to preserve all that evidence. And if you don't have a law firm like us to cover those bases and preserve that evidence, then your case is degrading and becoming more and more compromised with each passing day.